Thank you, Mike. Oh. Does it go ding?
Right here.
Is it gonna ding already?
I don't know what's gonna ding.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bob, and I am an alcoholic. Wow. My sobriety date is January 1, 1992, which adds up to 31 years. And on January 1, 1992, I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. And it's just been, I got 30 minutes to go over this. And it's just been one joyful time after another, even during some times that were not as joyful, but it was able to be handled. I'm trying to, the reason my sobriety date is on January 1 is that New Year's Eve day, I had an appointment with a doctor that specialized in chemical dependency, whose name and phone number, etc., I had received from the doctor, my primary doctor. Now, I didn't get any DWIs, thank you God. Not that it didn't happen. I never went to jail. All of that. But for some reason, I went to my doctor and I was going to get it all taken care of, whatever this stuff. I hadn't been fired. I'd been transferred a few times, but I hadn't been fired from any work. It's difficult to get fired from Boeing, but even though I tried actually to do it. Anyway, I went to my doctor, and he hadn't been saying much or saying much about anything on the alcoholism part. And he said, "What can I do for you?" And I says, "I think I need some help with this drinking stuff." That's about the one thing I can remember is going in my head at the time. And I can still to this day, 31 years later, see almost like a big come out of him. He was kind of new to the general medical field at that time. At any rate, that's beside the point. He said, others that have come to me, he says, I have the name of a doctor specializing in chemical dependency. And if you would like this name and number, I'd be happy to give them to you. And I said, yes. And he said, good, I'll go get that and bring it to you. And he did. He came back in the office and he says, good luck, hang in there. I had it all sorted out. I had Bob's way going to hang this stuff. I got to my doctor. Now I got that name of another doctor. I didn't know about this lawless stuff on TV that I would always turn off and this and that. But now I get this guy's name. See, and between the Boeing company, between Christmas and New Year's, we were off. We had free. I didn't have to use any vacation time or what. I could just go get done what needed to be done. If there had to be anything to be done, I don't know, whatever. God was just laughing his ass off. Excuse my language. He had much other plans. So anyway, we got wrapped, went into this doctor. As I started to leave my doctor's office, I asked to use their phone. And they gave it to me, and I called this doctor, and it was it was Christmas Eve day. I had to get going on this thing already. I mean, come on, I got to get it. So I called that doctor's office, and the earliest they could get me in was New Year's Eve day. Okay, I'll do it. And so away I went. The woman I was married to at that time, we had it was at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I know I was probably doing the shake, rattle, rolling and all that stuff, but whoosh, before we ever got home we were living in Bossel at the time, before I turned off I-5, there was my best Mexican restaurant, so I had to go in there for lunch or breakfast or whatever. down they started coming and whatever. So eventually I get home. I never went out on New Year's Eve anyway. So, then I started drinking at home. And all of a sudden, I don't know, 7, 8, or 9 o'clock that night, oh, my chest seemed to be just exploding. Apparently my esophagus was raw and all this stuff, as it turns out. She's scared to hell. She doesn't know what to do. And I said, we called the doctor, and he said, go to the nearest ER. The only thing, we're living in Boston. I made her drive all the way from Bothell, but she didn't know what the area was, to Ballard, where this other doctor's office was and where the care unit was, as it turned out. I didn't know anything about that. He had, we had gone over and talked with him. I didn't know that. But at any rate, so I go into the ER, and of course, you say chest pains, and bing, bang, boom, I'm off on the gurney and hooked up and do that stuff. And she's taking care of all the paperwork. And finally, the doctor comes in and says, well, we've got to calm down a little bit. Your esophagus seems to be needing some attention. So he says, I've given you a nice cocktail thing to calm that down. And then we're going to do some blood tests. We got to have blood tests done every 4 hours or something. So we'll get you up at the coronary care unit. And I go, whatever. So long story. I get up there, didn't get any more of that nice esophageal kind of stuff. Then I got a pill, which I turned out is probably one of those that knocks you out, because I did not see the needle exploding at midnight. That's for sure. And maybe I was exploding, but that wasn't. And of course, the treatment center, I'd been talking with them, and they had said something about, oh, if you want to come in, why don't you just come? No, don't come in too drunk, and this and that. But here I'm wearing there. 10 o'clock the next morning, January 1st, 1992, they come over the wheelchair, put me in, take me down, put me in their newcomer's bed, give me another, whatever those things are, happy pills. And at that point, my blood alcohol was 0. So, and it's from that point, even before I left, I had 24 days at the care unit, and just started going little bit by little bit to meetings. They took us to meetings. It was important that we go to meetings. I didn't care. I was just whatever. And I remember at that time there was the Ballard's Men's Group, but on Thursday, I think, or whatever day it was, they had a meeting on the floor at the treatment center. And I remember going there in my pajamas. And, is anybody here an alcoholic? And I said, yeah, I had blah, 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 blah. But and then a little later, there was a Sunday morning at the hospital there also, a meeting. And so I go to the meeting. I'm there just getting in just a little late. And the chair there was a chair, somebody sitting at it, and then there was an open chair where I could just get to it. And I sat down, and the guy looked over and said, oh, hey, Bob. Looked over at me. Well, somebody I'd worked with. He says, yeah. He says, what are you doing here? I says, well, I'm in the treatment center. Oh, I was wondering if you'd ever get here. But then everything started that way because, see, one of the things that the treatment center wanted us to do is we're going to these various meetings is to get a sponsor. And so here's good old, oh my God, don't get old. Can't even remember his name. He was so instrumental in getting me out to meetings and stuff. And eventually he died, and he died sober, but a little older than I was at that time. Anyway, yeah, I got him signed up with the treatment people. They would come pick me up and go. I got my first scheduled book at the 85th, the Ballard meeting. It was on 85th and 15th or whatever. I still have that scheduled book, as a matter of fact. And so I just, by the time the 24th of December rolled around, and it was a Friday, and they wanted to make room for some more drunks, I guess. They said, "Good luck," and away you go. And in the meantime, we got a lot of meetings, and there was another fellow in there that he was kind of recycling back and forth, and he had found out a way to get to there's a men's group that was particularly in the North End of the farm. It's called anyway. It was a men's group. Thanks. Thanks. There's several of these guys in here right now. But and there was one of their meetings at lunchtime across the freeway from where I drank my lunch every day. And so I just started with that one. And of course, those guys just started picking me up and doing, giving me a lot of pats on the back and a lot of support. And, next thing I knew, hell, I'd gone 90 days and hadn't had anything to drink. And I wasn't missing it, wasn't craving it. And, I got a whole 30 minutes, but I could, it's been that way. Because I got a home group that I got to in a year or so. I was at a home group meeting, and the GSR had to resign the position because of work-related things, and they needed somebody to be the GSR because they needed to go to an assembly where they were going to be voting on whether the Washington area was going to split or not. And one of the guys that had been around there for a while looked over at me and said, "About time you did that, don't you think, Bob?" I don't know what the hell that meant. And sure enough, I was their GSR and went to Spokane and was able to be a part of that decision that the Washington area 72 took to split into two areas and submit that to the conference. I hardly even knew what the hell the conference was about, let alone the GSR, but I did both, and this and that. By that time, a person that ended up being a service sponsor, whose name is also Bob, I was seeing him being operate at that meeting as a DCM for whatever it was at. And I said, I kind of like what I understand what he's going. I'd really gotten pissed off at him at a home group meeting because I didn't like what he'd tell me to do. But that was beside the point. So, he became my service sponsor, and I ended up having some time, and I kept by this time, Boeing had no cause to, because I was having lunches all right, going off camp with the company across the freeway from where I worked, but I was coming back sober, so I wasn't coming back reeking of alcohol either. So, and then the service thing got hold of me, and I did that GSR spot, and was going to the district's meetings, and then I realized that there was some treatment committee meetings around, and I had been involved with treatment at Ballard, and I could go there and do that, and they had elected a group, Linwood Study Group is the name of that group, elected me their GSR, so I would go to the District 24, I think it was then, district meetings, and I was hearing about treatment, and one thing led to another, and I ended up being the Bridge the Gap chairperson for the district, and it just little things, a little bit more, and next thing I know, I end up being a DCM. Oh my God, what's that going to be like? And I go to these, due to these things, and it just after my DCM time was up, the new slate of officers got really sick, and they elected me as their treatment chair for the area at that time. And I went to the first time anybody from Western Washington. I went to the Bridge the Gap workshop weekend in Omaha, Nebraska, and there was people from the General Service Office, both PI and treatment, and Omaha. One thing out of another. One thing has led to a lot of another's, and one of which we both trying to figure this out. But Phoenix Club became a part of my life, and as a result of getting to the Phoenix Club, the lady that I'd been married to when I went into treatment was long gone, thank God, and it was very mutual on that one. That was very mutual. We had met in a bar in Bakersfield, California, when I was home on leave for something. But at any rate, so I started going to the Phoenix Club on Friday nights. And it seemed to be at a certain point in time there was another person there that was about 6 months sober at the time. We seemed to hang around in the parking lot a little longer than we had been before, and we now have been married for 26 years.
Wow.
So. And right now I have to be very supportive of her, because I can be. She's sober, I'm sober, but she just lost her youngest daughter this week. So I lost my oldest son. He had 17 years sober in this program. And I say about him, he called me up one day from Colorado Springs and says, "Dad, I got a DLBI." I says, "Okay, you don't need to say anything more." I said, "I'll see you in a couple of days. And when I get there, you are going to a meeting with me." That's all I said to him. And whoosh, I did. And he did. And a year later, I was able to go to his home group meeting and give him my first year coin. So unfortunately, what's going on right now with my wife, it went on with me earlier, where she was able to support me. He got ALS. And he left us with 17 years sobriety bender. So and incidentally, my youngest stepdaughter, who just passed away, also passed away sober. So at any rate, these life issues have been not the kind of things we really like to have, but they were real. And these 12 steps in particular, and the traditions, particularly the steps, were there for me. My son's mother and I, we decided that we didn't want to be married very long after almost 20 years. And we never even got it. We used the same attorney to get us divorced. And we maintained a friendship for that, because we had a son that eventually, when the ALS started getting there, we needed to be there. But when she ended up getting Parkinson's, and I was able, with Marilyn, my wife's support, to be there to help support her during her end of her life because of Parkinson's. So these things wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have the stories like that other people have gotten. I never got a DWI. Should have, but I never got caught. I never got fired. I worked for the two largest companies in the world, the Boeing company in aviation, and the Saudi Arabian American Oil Company in Saudi Arabia. Oh, I loved that time at the oil company. It was illegal to have booze there, but everybody knew how to make it. And I knew how to make good wine out of the fruit juice that came from Austria, and I could trade it for the good stuff. At any rate, all of my addictive behavior was. I can look back on it. They didn't want to have to do anything. Oh, I got to say one thing about that story though. Marilyn and I, we both got sober just before the International was here. But so we were sober and we were enjoying sobriety together at the meetings and stuff. The next event that came along was the International in San Diego. Well, what better place to do? Let's go to San Diego, do that. And I had, in the meantime, I had been given a nice retirement from the Boeing company. And on such and such a day at midnight, and the day that it was effective, we were in San Diego. So we were going out to after midnight, we'd celebrate. I was retired from Boeing with a nice pension and health insurance and all this stuff. And incidentally, that's how we got married too. I said, anyway, besides the point. I provided her health insurance. What the hell? Anyway, we're going out to have a cigarette in the smoking area. And as we're walking out, she says to me, look at this fellow over here in this funny clothes. It says he's from Bahrain or something. And I looked over and here's the first delegate from the country of Bahrain was there. And he was sitting in a chair getting ready to, I don't know what. So I turned around and went back to him and said, sit. The greeting in Arabic. All of a sudden now I can't even think of it, right? But Kayf Alik Siddiqui, how far are you? How are you? And he looked. He says, oh, you know Arabic? I said, well, yeah, I worked at Aramco across the causeway for 8 years. Oh, he says, well, do you know such and such? So I said, well, yes, I do. He said, so you go to the meetings? And I said, well, no. When I was in Arabia, I didn't need any meetings. I didn't want any. I wouldn't have even thought about having any. So he says, oh, very good. But anyway, he was going to have a cigarette, so we got on and talked some more. And he says, well, do you know so-and-so? And I knew him because his brother was at my home group, that Walling had taken me to. His brother had been there. And I coached that boy's son in Little League soccer. Talk about God being in my life. Talk about coincidences. Everything is just coming together. As the brother eventually did pass away, but so I was able to meet him, and he said, oh my God, you're here and you're sober. Pete's been telling me about you. How good. So, I'm very pleased to be able to stand up here today and share some experience, strength, and hope with you all. And, see all of you, and some of you I've seen before and know for before, and my good old bunch of guys that had lunch across the freeway from and across the street from where I drank my lunch. A couple of them are in here today. So there's more of them that have not, that are off to having their meetings wherever they need to have their meetings now. And one of these days, I'll probably be up there with them too at that time. So that's good. Usually I get called to shut up.
You did good.
Thank you all for letting me share with you tonight. And thank you all for doing a real another nice big 12-step call on me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.